Hello friends, myself your English teacher Acharya sir, and at the numerous request of my students I have come up with this hitherto untrodden territory of reasoning questions. The thing is that ISC for the first time in 2023 has introduced this reasoning question. You may better call it because answers, you may better call it um, complete the sentence. Whatever be it, it is something new, and as such, I think it mandatory on my part because my students have requested me to give provide answers of these questions that they have not attempted so far, and which is something very much new to them. So, as an experiment basis, I have prepared this lesson for you on the story of an hour. On the basis of your response, I would provide you not only this, all the 10 pieces, be it prose or poetry, and if need be, then on the drama, The Tempest. So, let's begin. The story of an hour. Question number 1. In the story of an hour, Josephine is afraid to tell Mrs. Mallard that her husband died because Mrs. Mallard had a heart condition, had a heart problem. Let's come to the second question. All the sounds Mrs. Mallard hears after she has been told of her husband's death are ironic because they are all sad and lonely sounds. Now, question number 3. What Mrs. Mallard feels approaching her is described as creeping and as something that will possess her are ironic because it is in her freedom she feels coming, but it is denied of her at the end. Question number 4. Mrs. Mallard says, free, free, free in the story of an hour because Mrs. Mallard is happy to be free of her husband. Question number 6. The story of an hour. Now that her husband has been killed, life became meaningful for Mrs. Mallard because she would live for herself. You may as well call that she is free of the marital bondage. Question number 7. Towards the end of the story of an hour, the entire story changes because Mrs. Mallard walks through the door. Mrs. Mallard, not it's Mr. Mallard walks through the door. That is, the presumption that Mr. Mallard died is totally a wrong one. Question number 8. Mrs. Mallard's reflection that she had recently wished for a short life soon has additional irony for the reader because she gets what she wanted after she stopped wanting it, meaning her life is really cut short. Question number 9. Readers in Kate Chopin's time must have found the story of an hour particularly shocking because of the contrast between Mrs. Mallard's response to her husband's death and the response the society would consider appropriate. Question number 10. Kate Chopin withholds the protagonist's first name in the story because she wants to highlight the identity crisis that a woman suffers post-marriage. It is a question of woman's assertion. That is, a woman would assert herself. It is not that Mrs. Mallard is unhappy, but she could not assert herself. That is the problem in this marital relationship. Okay. Question number 10. Question number 11. When her husband supposedly died, Mrs. Mallard is ambivalent of her emotions because she should be sad, but feels content that his death makes her free and independent. Question number 12. Mrs. Mallard feels malcontent in her marriage because she feels entrapped and unloved. Question number 13. The window is a symbol of freedom because what she sees through the window represents her long cherished independence. Question number 14. Mrs. Mallard's heart trouble affects her at the resolution of the story, that is towards the end of the story, because she dies of heart disease, especially of a broken heart. Question number 15. The protagonist dies of a broken heart because, or you may say it the other way around, the resolution, that is the ending of the story, is an example of irony because she was shocked to learn that her husband was alive, and this meant that the freedom and independence she foresaw would never occur, she would be denied of it. Question number 16. The title, The Story of an Hour, is justified because Mrs. Mallard gains her freedom and loses her life in the span of a single hour. Question number 17. Conclusion of the story of an hour has double-pronged irony because Mr. Mallard comes home alive while it was given out that he was dead, and Mrs. Mallard's life was cut short when she wants to live long. That's all for this short video, or you may call it a short lesson. I would like to see your response. How do you like it? Because this is my first ever attempt to hitherto on attempted territory of reasoning questions. If I find that you are interested and it is of help to you, as my students have requested me time and again that, sir, you please help us in this way. If I find it helpful for you from your response, I would provide you all the other topics, that is prose pieces, poetry pieces, and if need be, of the drama as well. Thank you for watching and wish you would respond heartily to my this humble endeavor. Thank you.